What if everything you thought you knew about vampires and werewolves was wrong?
Mistaken?
What if the eternal rivalry
the
between
age-old
these two
feud
creatures of the
between
night
these nocturnal
wasn't just the
beings
stuff of
wasn't
horror
just fodder
movies and
for
gothic
horror
novels,
films and dark
but a deadly
tales,
chess match
but a
of
lethal
instinct,
game of instinct,
intelligence,
cunning,
bloodlust, and brutal
and raw
strength?
power? Welcome to Tales of Mythology, where ancient myths, buried terrors, and otherworldly battles spring to life. If you're fascinated by the hidden layers of folklore, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with every epic tale. Let's dive into the arena. Vampires, gaunt, icy-skinned, and undying. These beings thrive on blood, a
It's a
scarlet
clash of
craving that
ideologies.
fuels their vigor
Instinct
but binds
versus
them to
intellect.
strange
Flesh
limitations.
versus fang.
Montague
Rage
Summers, the
versus
vampire
rot.
in Europe,
As
describes
folklorist
a
Peter
vampire
Heyning once
as
said,
a corpse that
the vampire
rises
endures
nightly
not
to
because of
drain
his
the
strength,
lifeblood of the
but because
living,
of his ability to
repelled by
blend,
Christian
deceive, and
symbols,
outlast.
crosses,
He is
holy
not a
water,
warrior,
and
but a
sunlight can
survivor.
reduce
Sometimes
them to
survival
dust.
is the deadliest weapon.
Yet, their eternal life and mesmerizing intellect make them formidable. Only a stake through the heart, silver, or beheading guarantees their end, but closing the distance is no small feat. Now, picture the werewolf, a human ripped apart and reformed under the moon's sway into a snarling fusion of man and beast. Traditionally, this shift happened
These
only
aversions
during a
stem
full
from
moon,
centuries
but
of
modern
religious
tales
symbolism,
stretch those
weaponized
boundaries.
against what was considered
Sabine
unholy.
Baring-Gould's The Book
A
of
cross
Werewolves,
isn't just a shape, it's a
1865,
spiritual weapon,
states,
charged
some
with
men
the
take on
collective
the
fear
form
and
of
faith
wolves,
of entire
driven to
civilizations.
hunt their kin as
But
if
beyond
by
symbols,
primal compulsion.
their biological weaknesses are
Popular
surprisingly
culture
human.
often allows them
Blood
to transform
consumption
at
leads
will,
to iron
especially
overload,
when
and
danger
with it comes
looms.
real damage.
Their
Liver
Achilles
failure,
heel?
dehydration,
Silver
and
in
heart strain.
bullets or
Their
blades.
immortality has a price.
Unlike vampires,
It is one that makes
they're
them walking
mortal,
corpses,
they age,
often
they
elegant
perish,
but
and their
undeniably
dominance
rotting
hinges
beneath.
not on
Werewolves,
time,
on the
but
other
on
hand,
ferocity.
carry a simpler curse.
Both carry
and
a
with
tragic
it,
weight.
fewer ways to be destroyed.
Vampires,
Their only
damned to
consistent
eternal
vulnerability
existence,
is silver,
cannot bear
a
daylight
substance
without
as rare
torment.
as it is deadly.
Werewolves,
Unlike the many folklore-born
enslaved by their
tools
own
used to
bodies, morph into something alien under lunar influence. Vampires are leeches, undead, often rotting beneath a facade of allure. Hematologists warn that blood drinking risks iron toxicity, harming organs like the liver. Werewolves embody unleashed savagery,
vampires.
but their change
The werewolf's
often strips
Achilles
away
heel is
reason,
singular,
leaving
but
only
absolute.
instinct.
A blade,
A vampire
bullet,
plots
even
with
a shard of
ageless
silver
guile,
driven into
while
their
a
flesh is
werewolf
enough to
tears
stop
through
them
barriers,
permanently.
no hesitation.
What makes this even more
It's
terrifying
brute force
is that outside
versus
of silver,
strategy, brawn
werewolves
against
are
brain.
almost invincible.
Werewolves
Their
boast
speed,
a surprising
regeneration,
edge. Their
and
senses,
monstrous strength
far beyond
allow them
human
to
limits,
outmatch any
can
human or
sniff out a
predator that lacks the
vampire
right
in
weapon.
disguise from
In The
miles
Werewolf
off.
in Lore and Legend, Montague
Vampires,
Summers writes,
despite their skill,
"It is not the beast
often
that
can't
perishes
match
easily,
this,
but the man
stumbling
within,
into ambushes
trapped
they
beneath the
never
weight
sense."
of fur and fury,
Point,
held hostage
wolf.
by the moon."
Mentally,
While they are not immortal,
vampires wield
they are
sharpened
resilient,
human intellect,
capable of surviving
capable
wounds
of
that would
scheming,
instantly kill any
commanding,
mortal enemy.
or betraying even
However,
their own.
not all weaknesses are
Werewolves,
physical.
bound to their
Vampires
packs,
often
operate
fail
like
in the realm of
tribes,
trust
not
and unity.
empires. This loyalty is their forte, while vampires' penchant for treachery
Despite
can
their ability to
unravel their
multiply
ranks
quickly,
into chaos.
turning victims into allies with a single
Vampires'
bite,
vulnerabilities
their
are
communities
almost
are riddled
comical.
with internal
Garlic,
conflict.
holy water,
These creatures,
sunlight,
driven
even
by
a flower
selfish
bed
survival
can undo
and
them.
an obsession with control,
Claude
are
Lecouture in
prone
The
to
Secret
betrayal.
History of Vampires,
One vampire plotting against
2005,
another is not an
notes,
exception.
The
It's
vampire's
a pattern.
weaknesses are so
Their
numerous
intelligence and
that
cunning
survival
become
seems
double-edged
less about
swords.
might
They
and more
manipulate
about
allies as
dodging
easily as
zealous
they do
farmers.
enemies. As documented
Yet,
in Vampires,
vampires can
Burial and
soar,
Death by Paul
scheme,
Barber,
and corrupt
the
from
vampire's
within,
greatest
playing
enemy is
chess
often
while
itself.
werewolves batter the board. Werewolves, meanwhile, only fear silver, scarce,
isolated by
costly,
arrogance and
tricky
consumed
to
by
use.
self-preservation.
Vampires
This lack
spread
of loyalty
faster,
makes
turning
them
foes
efficient
into
killers,
allies with
but
a bite.
poor soldiers.
Werewolves,
In war,
more
unity
solitary,
often
pass
triumphs
their
over
curse to
brilliance,
few.
and vampires,
In
with all their
prolonged
strategic
conflicts,
genius,
numbers
often
tip the
lose
scales,
to their own
and
internal
vampires
chaos.
excel at
Werewolves
building
may lack
armies.
the tactical brilliance of
So,
their
who
undead
triumphs?
foes, but their
A
strength
beast with
lies
unmatched
in
might,
pack loyalty.
loyalty, and
Once
raw
bonded, they
instinct,
fight as
or
one,
a decaying
led not by
aristocrat
manipulation
with fangs,
but by
flight,
instinctual
and
unity.
centuries of cunning?
Their primal connection to
It's a
each other
clash
makes
of
betrayal
philosophies,
rare, and
instinct
emotional
versus
strength becomes
intellect,
their armor.
flesh versus
They
fang,
don't build
fury
armies,
versus
they
decay.
form clans.
Folklorist Peter Haining observed, "The vampire persists not through strength, but through
can't
blending,
multiply as
deceiving,
fast.
and
The few that
enduring."
exist are bound together like
He's
blood
not
brothers.
a fighter, but a
These
survivor.
werewolves don't fight for power.
Sometimes
they fight for
survival is the ultimate
They
weapon.
aren't immortal, but they don't need
Vampires
to be.
captivate with
What they
charm
lack
and
in
grace,
complexity,
but their
they
many
make up
weaknesses,
for in unshakable
garlic,
loyalty.
crucifixes,
As noted by
sunlight,
Sabine
holy
Baring
water,
Gould in the Book
are
of
almost
Werewolves,
theatrical.
in the forest,
Alan
the lone
Dunn's The
wolf
Vampire,
dies,
a
but the
casebook
pack
explains
survives,
these stem
howls
from
rising like
centuries
war
of religious
cries in the
symbols
night.
turned
It
against
is this
the
bond
unholy.
that may give them the upper
Blood
hand in any
consumption
prolonged
risks
conflict
iron
with the
overload,
undead.
leading to liver damage, dehydration, and heart strain.
One
Werewolves,
often
with
overlooked
only
contrast
silver as their
is the
bane,
absurdity
are
of what
nearly
can kill or
unstoppable
weaken a vampire,
otherwise. Their
compared
speed,
to what it takes to
healing,
defeat a
and
werewolf.
strength
Holy
overwhelming
relics,
most
garlic,
enemies.
daylight. These are not
Montague
elite weapons,
Summers
they're
in The
practically
Werewolf
kitchen
in Lore
supplies.
and Legend
A vampire
writes,
can be
"It's
undone
not
by a
the beast
sunbeam
that
or
falls
frightened off by
easily,
a clove of
but the
garlic,
human within,
whereas to kill a
trapped under
werewolf
fur
requires a
and
rare
rage,
metal,
bound to the
forged
moon's
into a
will."
weapon and wielded with
Vampires
precision.
often falter
This
in
makes
trust and
vampires seem in
unity,
many ways
their
far
cunning
more
a
delicate,
double-edged blade.
and delicacy in war is a
As
fatal
Paul
flaw.
Barber
Claude
notes in
Lecoultre, in The
Vampires,
Secret History
Burial,
of Vampires,
and Death, the
humorously
vampire's
remarks,
greatest enemy
"A
is
monster
often
that trembles
itself,
before a vegetable
isolated by
is perhaps
arrogance
not the
and
apex
consumed
predator
by
we believed it to be."
self-preservation.
Yet, it
Werewolves,
is this
though
combination
lacking
of
tactical
elegance and
brilliance,
vulnerability
thrive on
that makes
pack
them
loyalty,
fascinating and
fighting
dangerous.
as one with
Their
unshakable
weakness might be
bonds.
many, but they survive because
Sabine
they know
Baring
how to
Gould
turn the
writes in the
battlefield
Book
in their
of
favor,
Werewolves,
using
in the
fear
forest,
and
the
manipulation.
lone wolf dies, but the pack survives, howls rising like war cries in the night.
As their weapons.
This bond may
And so
give
the
them
lines
the
are drawn.
edge in prolonged
Vampires
conflicts.
fragile in daylight but deadly
The
in
absurdity
shadows,
of vampire
operating from
weaknesses,
behind curtains of
undone by
illusion
kitchen
and influence.
supplies, contrasts
Werewolves
with
bound
the
by the
singular,
moon, but
deadly
strong,
threat of silver
loyal,
to werewolves.
and nearly indestructible
Claude Lecoultre
outside of
humorously
silver.
remarks,
It is not only a war of
monster that
strength,
trembles before a vegetable is perhaps not the apex predator we believed.
but of survival
Yet,
strategy,
vampires
of
survive
how
by
weakness is
turning the
concealed or
battlefield in
wielded.
their favor,
In this
using
deadly
fear
balance of
and
light and dark,
manipulation.
rot and rage,
Werewolves,
one
bound
truth
by the
rises.
moon but
No
nearly
monster is
indestructible,
ever just what
rely
it
on raw
seems.
power and loyalty. It's a war of survival strategy where
Among all-
weakness is concealed or wielded. Instinct defines and divides them. Werewolves surrender to chaos, their beast form relentless and without morality, as Constantinos notes in Werewolves, The Occult Truth. Vampires balance animal hunger with human cunning, choosing the perfect moment to strike, as Bob Curran writes in Vampires, a field guide to the creatures that stalk the night. Werewolves live in anticipation and dread of transformation, losing logic to instinct. Vampires, self-aware infiltrators, turn instinct into a controlled tool, surviving through illusion, as noted in the Vampire Encyclopedia by Matthew Bunson. In battle,
More likely to
vampires
outmaneuver
plan,
it through timing and
werewolves
deception.
charge.
This contrast
One
becomes
fights with
even more
intellect
pronounced when we
honed by
examine
cruelty,
their behavior
the
in
other with
non-combat
untamed
situations.
passion.
A werewolf,
The
even in human
battlefield is
form, is still ruled
unpredictable.
by lunar
A
cycles
vampire may
and the
outthink a
inevitability of
werewolf,
transformation.
but only if it survives
This creates
the
an
first
existence
blow.
of anticipation,
When night
dread,
falls silent,
and limited
the clash
control.
of these predators
During
leaves
the full
only
moon,
ruins.
logic is irrelevant.
Vampires
Bonds
wage
are
war
broken.
with calculated
Memory
strikes,
is lost.
organizing
There is no
like
thought to disguise
aristocratic
or
militias,
diplomacy.
but their
They are driven
unity is
entirely
fragile,
by physical
as Jay.
domination and
Gordon
territorial
Melton
instinct.
notes in the Vampire
Vampires,
book,
meanwhile,
the
often
Encyclopedia
operate
of
in the
the
shadows
Undead.
of civilization,
Werewolves
weaving themselves
rally
into
as
society,
clans, their
hiding in
instinctive
plain
coordination a
sight. Their
declaration
instinct
of war. Vampires' abilities, flight, vanishing, mind manipulation, are lethal, striking when werewolves are weakest. Dudley Wright writes in Vampires and Vampirism, the vampire plays a game of shadows and timing, ensuring the foe is always a step behind. Yet, a werewolf at full strength is unstoppable, its fury overwhelming elegance, as Andrew J. Hoffman notes in Monsters. A Bedford Spotlight reader, the werewolf wins because it is the storm, and storms do not reason. In this eternal war, neither side truly wins. The cost is high, the scars deep. Vampires need werewolves as challengers, and werewolves need vampires as predators. As John Clute and John Grant note in the Encyclopedia of Fantasy, all monsters are mirrors, and those that survive the longest do so by never facing their reflection alone. The war continues, eternal, brutal, and magnificent.